Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a Ruger Mark IV Standard on the table. What you're looking at is the latest evolution of a 70-year-old design. These were first released back in 1949 as the Ruger Standard. Then it evolved into the Mark series and then moved into what you see here, which is the Mark IV Standard. And then of course we have an empty Mark IV Standard. The pistol itself was designed to mimic the 1911, so the grip angle is the 1911 grip angle, and the overall ergonomics, complete with the kind of a beaver tail, is meant to be like a 1911. It's kind of a training tool. They've gone well beyond being just a training tool into being a very fun gun to shoot, an effective target pistol, and even good for varminting. But they've had one annoyance throughout the years, and that's, well, of course you won't see it on this one because that's part of the beauty of it, but there's an arm that you would pull and you'd lift the mainspring assembly out, and they're very difficult to disassemble and reassemble. That's no longer true with these. You push a button. Oops, I have to have the safety in the proper position. That was my bad, not the gun's bad. But you push a button and the upper pops off. Now you can easily clean it, pull the bolt out, clean it, reassemble it, put it back together. A lot of these guns ended up sitting either the bottom of a safe or going to a gunsmith as bag-o gun, mainly because they were difficult to disassemble and reassemble. So they fixed that, but they also haven't ruined the gun. So I'm going to talk about that. One thing I will show, by the way, when I've got it apart, because it's going to matter in a minute. See that little pin there? It's visible on both sides. That is a striker stop, or a firing pin stop. That makes this gun drop safe. Normally a .22 is not drop safe. These are. And in fact, pulling the trigger is part of the takedown procedure. To reassemble it, the hardest part is actually lining everything up, getting it just right, which is more easily done if you've got it facing yourself, which I'm actually going to have to do because it's not difficult, it's just cumbersome if you're not doing it at the right angle, and you snap it back together. So I'm going to show you that again because I had messed up the first time. But I push a button, flip, disassemble. Now getting the old one apart was relatively easy. Getting it back together was a bit on the miserable side, and that's what this new design completely changes. Snap, done. Now I've got a video where I do one of the older designs, and I can put it together. I think it was 16 seconds, but that was lots and lots of practice trying to get it right. This one here, it's just don't do it wrong. It's easy. It's just, you know, like the first time I messed up because I had the safety in the wrong position. But if you mess up at any point, it's easy. You just fix what you didn't do right and resume with it. So let's talk more about the gun. Even though the Mark IV series, their big claim to fame is that they're easy to maintain, let's talk more about the gun itself. First off, this has the taper barrel, which matches the original Ruger Standard and then carried into the later series. They've also got a bull barrel version of it. There's a 2245, and it kind of resembles a German Luger. It doesn't have the toggle at the back, but it's kind of got that overall look and feel. It does have a button-style mag release as opposed to a heel release, which is much easier to use, and it comes with these well-constructed 10-round magazines that have a little grip to pull it down to load the mags. They're very easy to load. And unlike some .22 mags where you've got to get everything just aligned just right to load them, these actually load quite easily. It'll come with two of these. Notice that the base plate is square with a little tang. The various versions of these have different base plates. So these magazines are not backwards or forward compatible with the other versions. Other than that, I don't think the magazine itself has significantly changed. It's mostly the base plate. But the old style with kind of like a finger that stuck out won't fit in this. Dimensions of the gun, it's not designed to be small and light. That's not the purpose of this. So it's 9 inches front to back, it's 5.4 inches tall, and it's 1.2 inches thick. It's a little bit thick, you know, because you got the 1911 style grips. And it weighs 28.2 ounces. So it's a relatively heavy gun, even though it's not ridiculous. It is well balanced, it's very comfortable to hold. This particular one is model 40104. And it has a 4 3/4 inch barrel. There's also a 6-inch barrel version of it. I think it's 105. And there's a 70th anniversary version of this one with the 4 3/4 inch barrel. I think that one's 106. The 70th anniversary gets kind of a display case and some additional markings on the gun, but other than that, they're functionally identical. And the 6-inch barrel one is functionally identical other than having a longer barrel. This particular combination seems to look the most balanced. It feels balanced, it's comfortable, and these are not particularly expensive guns overall. They've got a $449 MSRP, but the street prices average is around $329. The 70th anniversary one I think adds $80, and the 6-inch barrel is right about the same price. So overall, they're a fairly inexpensive gun for one that is so reliable. These have been around for years. They hold up well. The redesign to make it easy to maintain and clean did not ruin the functionality of the gun, and it didn't ruin the trigger. And that's what I'm going to show you. Now, Ruger loves their safeties. This thing's got lots of safeties. Magazine disconnect, which to me is a dubious as a quality of a safety, but it does have a magazine disconnect. I'm probably going to get rid of that on this gun. And then of course it has the thumb safety, which is here. But the trigger is quite nice on these. It's about a 5-pound trigger. There's minimal take-up. Nice, real crisp brake with a little bit of over travel. And of course it's kind of cumbersome because I have to have the magazine in it. There's the reset, which is basically all the way out, but the overall travel is short enough that it feels like a short reset. And then, again, your real nice crisp brake at around 5 pounds. And yes, I did just pull the trigger twice on a 22, but again, as long as you have that pin in place, these are designed to be dry fire safe. Not that I would make this a dry fire practice gun. I'm not going to sit in the living room watching TV and dry fire this hundreds of times. But you do have to pull the trigger to disassemble it, and you do also have to, you can pull the trigger to demonstrate it and things like that with impunity in this particular design, and that's been true of the whole series throughout their evolution. The grips are replaceable, but they're really nice looking grips. They're textured well, they're easy to get a hold of. The logos have changed over the years. The red and silver logo that they're using currently is actually quite nice looking. As far as stippling, everything's smooth on the gun except for the grip. But it's a 22. You'd get minimal recoil on it, so it's not like it's going to try to crawl out of your hands. And the curvature kind of fits right in with your hands. Even if you have larger hands, it just fits in there well. And it's really easy to get a hold of. The beaver tail gets you down below the bolt, which kind of acts as a combination slide bolt because only this part moves. Keeps you away from it, so you're not going to get slide bit by it or bolt bit by it. Now, this particular model doesn't have the nicest sights in the world. They're target sights, they're blackout sights, and they are fairly difficult for me to see well. Despite that, it was actually fairly easy to shoot this well once I figured out how to find the sights. There is a company called Williams Fire Sights, and they make upgraded sights for these, and this is going to get a little treatment from that. On this particular variant, there's a pin you drive out and this blade comes out, and the back one you just can drive it out and replace it. There are different models of these guns have different sights, and there are versions with adjustable sights. The ones with the adjustable sights are a little easier to replace the back because you just kind of drive a pin out, you just replace the arm. But the only thing that I would change on this gun, and probably will change, is to get rid of the magazine disconnect. It's kind of a nuisance more than anything, and swap the sights out for ones that I can just more easily see. I may try white dots first and see if that gets it done, but most likely Williams Fire Sights is where it's going to go. Two other things I'll mention before I take it back apart again to show you a little more details of the inner workings of it. It is drilled and tapped for a Picatinny rail so that you can put red dot or other types of sighting mechanisms on it. And the safety on it is ambidextrous, and it's recessed and flush so that when you're holding it, it isn't going to bite into your hands. A lot of ambi safeties have a tendency to bite into you. These don't. It stays away from your hand regardless of what position it's in. So it's a well done ambi safety. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this apart. On this particular version, you don't pull the trigger to disassemble it. All the prior ones, you would pull the trigger at various different points throughout the process, but this one you don't. You have to have the safety on safe, which requires it to be cocked for you to be able to do that. You know, there's so many guns that I take apart over the days in so many different generations, it's easy to mess up. But once you've got it in that position, you just push the button and it tilts right off. I'm going to set the upper aside for a second. We'll talk about the lower. The lower part of this, the grip frame, is CNC machined out of a single piece. Of course, some of the components that are added, but the frame itself is a single piece CNC machine. So it's not cheap in casting or stampings. It's actually well done, well machined, and it's all aluminum. And everything in here is smoothly done. So you see the fire control group back here. This pin, which is part of the bolt alignment and part of the assembly process. If you looked at the lower for one of the other versions, they'd look very similar. They're not interchangeable because of the changes they've made for the disassembly. But that's really all you'd see is different is this little arm for the disassembly. Overall, they're very similar throughout the generations. The upper, which surprisingly in this case, this is the firearm from an ATF perspective. So you do want to make sure that you take care of this because replacing this would involve getting a whole new gun basically. The only way you can really wreck one of these things is either to not take care of it very badly or to leave this pin out. And this pin will stop the firing pin from going far enough to hit the front of the chamber, which is down in there. And if you damage that chamber, there is really no way to fix it other than replace it. So I'm going to see if I can get my light up in here to show you down into the barrel. Get a little bit of light in there. It is conventional rifling. It is well machined and smooth. These are known to eat just about everything. The feed ramp on these is your standard 22 feed ramp. Let's see if I can turn it just so that you can see it. There you go. It's a machine polish, so it's not a mirror finish feed ramp. But when the magazine's in place, the round is high enough up on it that it pretty much feeds almost straight in. So these things are known to be quite reliable. And the recoil spring assembly, this will pop right out and you can clean it. And under normal circumstances, there is no reason to remove that firing pin stop bolt. But if you did need to service the firing pin, or if for some reason while you were playing around with it, it fell out, you'd want to make sure you put it back. And then, of course, line these pieces up, snap it in place, and that time I did it pretty smoothly. And now you've got a working Ruger. And you'll even see that the serial number is stamped on the front of the upper, whereas on a lot of guns it's somewhere on the lower. That's one nuance with these, and it's been that way the entire generation of them. Overall, between Hammer and I, we each have an assortment of these things. They are fun to shoot. There's a 2245 version that you've seen that I kind of tarted up with some grips, and it's set up for a suppressor. They're just a fun gun. They're inexpensive. They're durable. They're reliable. I've seen Mark 1s and I've seen standards that still look almost as good as factory condition, so they hold up well if you take care of them. They're easy to shoot well, and they're just a lot of fun to have. So if you're looking for a good, solid, reliable 22, and you've heard all of the nightmare stories about cleaning these things and kind of steered away from them, the Mark IV kind of takes care of the last reason you might have to not want one of these things. And at the price that they're looking at for these things, it's easy to do. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell if you do so you get notified. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, Instagram, and have a great day. Thank you.